Let's break it down straight from the hill to your hometown. No spin, no hype, just facts we find. AI's on the case, no truth left behind. Laws are written, deals are made. Who's got your back, who's throwing shade? We cut through the noise, decode the text, keeping it real. Congress in context, Congress in context, shining the light, breaking it down so you know what's right. Policies, votes, who's working for you? We bring the facts, the power is you.
Welcome to Congress in Context. Today we're going to dig into the Congressional Record. We've got a snapshot from April 10th, 2025.
Right.
And our plan is really to unpack what was happening in the House and Senate that day.
Yeah, give listeners a clear sense of the debates, the legislation, what Congress was actually focused on.
Exactly. We'll look at bills, commemorations, some of the maybe more heated moments too, all just to help understand what's going on in Washington.
It's always striking, isn't it, just how much ground they cover in a single day. This record is packed.
It really is. Okay, so let's start with the House of Representatives. The day kicked off, as it often does, with a guest chaplain.
Right. This time, it was Dr. Michael Gossett from Green Acres Baptist Church in Tyler, Texas.
Introduced by Representative Moran. It always makes me wonder, the choice of chaplain for a particular day.
That's an interesting thought. I mean, it's often routine, but sometimes perhaps the choice signals something. Maybe a regional focus or a certain tone they want to set. East Texas, in this case.
Could be. After that, they moved into the one-minute speeches. Always a mixed bag.
Definitely. Short bursts on almost anything.
Mr. Lamalfa was up first, talking about strengthening America's economy. He mentioned the DART Act.
Yeah, the DART Act. He linked it to diversion programs, mental health courts, basically alternative approaches within law enforcement.
So focusing on treatment and support, maybe, rather than just incarceration.
Seems like it. It suggests, an interest in tackling root causes, potentially reducing recidivism. We're seeing more talk about approaches like that.
Then the tone shifted. We had Mr. Niels honoring a sheriff's deputy, David Fontenot, who passed away. 30 years of service.
Very moving tributes often happen in these slots.
And Mr. Sorensen asked for recognition for the Oklahoma City bombing victims.
Right, and that came up in the Senate, too, marking the 30th anniversary. It shows how certain events really stay in the national consciousness.
Absolutely. These moments of remembrance, honoring service, loss, they're a big part of the record.
They are. They connect the chamber back to shared history and sacrifice.
On a happier note, Sorensen also congratulated a high school robotics team, Greenfield Central High.
Yeah, heading to the VX World Competition.
That's a nice reminder they celebrate local wins too, right? STEM education getting a shout out.
Exactly. Connects the national stage back to the local district. Good for morale. Highlights education priorities.
Then more tributes. Mr. Lawler honored Alan Seabuck Sr., a Korean War vet and volunteer firefighter for nearly 75 years. Amazing.
Wow, that's incredible dedication.
And Mr. Smith of Nebraska recognized Harry Lynn, a 102-year-old WWII veteran who sadly passed away in an accident.
Oh, that's tragic. But honoring that long life of service is important. It underlines values like patriotism, community service.
Then, Ms. Wasserman Schultz celebrated the Florida Gators basketball win. National champs.
Gotta have the sports shout-outs. Local pride.
Followed by Mr. Takano on a broader theme, protecting the promise of America.
Right, so you get that mix, the very local, then the big picture, sort of, value statements. Gives you a sense of their core message.
Mrs. Kim then brought in foreign policy, recognizing Taiwan. It was the 46th anniversary of the Taiwan Relations Act.
Yeah, that's obviously a very current and significant relationship. Highlighting it marks its strategic importance, especially with dynamics involving China.
Okay, then the tone seemed to shift again, got a bit more pointed. Mr. Meeser talked about the House passing the SAVE Act.
The Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act.
Right, requiring proof of citizenship for voter registration. He mentioned a specific case in Iowa.
That brings us right into a really hot-button issue, election integrity. Mooser's comments flag that concern about non-citizen voting.
And right after him, Mr. Keeley from California listed, I think it was 10 ways California is apparently under federal investigation.
10, yeah. That's quite a list. Shows some serious friction between the federal government and California on multiple fronts.
What kind of issues are on that list?
Let's see. Men and women's sports, racial discrimination in higher ed, the high-speed rail funding, cap and trade program, concealed carry. It's a wide range.
Wow. He also mentioned a new bill on charter schools and AI in education.
He packed a lot in. Seems focused on federalism, state issues from a conservative viewpoint, and education reform, technology's role there.
We then saw more local recognitions, high school teams, student awards, community leaders.
Right, back to that balancing act. National policy and local connections. It's what representatives do.
Then, circling back to the SAVE Act, Mr. Roy emphasized its aim to close, quote, election loopholes.
Reaffirming the party line on that bill.
After that, a few more honorifics, but then Mr. Garamendi reflected on Easter and Passover, and then pivoted to voicing concerns about the Trump administration's actions.
Okay, so bringing past administration policies back into the discussion.
And Mr. Espaillat took it further, calling Trump's tariffs the art of the steal. Strong words.
Very strong. Shows those trade debates are definitely not over.
And then Mr. Nadler talked about impeachment as a check on a reckless, ruthless president, and said he intended to bring articles of impeachment.
Wow. Okay, so even now, the possibility of impeachment is being explicitly raised. That really underscores the depth of the partisan division and opposition.
Definitely signals intensity. Then, Mr. Moore from Ohio brought the tariff issue down to earth, talking about the impact on Ohio's auto industry.
Right, the supply chains with Canada, the real-world consequences. That makes the abstract policy very concrete. It shows how national trade decisions hit specific sectors, specific workers, specific states. Important perspective.
Then we had another run of recognitions, someone explaining a missed vote. Standard procedural stuff, before getting to the big debate in the House that day.
The SVE Act consideration itself.
Exactly. And there were strong arguments on both sides.
For sure. Supporters like Mrs. Bice and Mr. Steele really hammered the election security angle, making sure only citizens vote, restoring voter confidence, especially referencing border policies.
Did they address the concerns about disenfranchising people like women whose names changed?
Mrs. Bice specifically said the act includes a process to handle name changes, trying to counter that argument directly. And Mr. Steele argued that while non-citizen voting is illegal, enforcement is key.
Okay, and the opposition?
Right.
Mrs. Lee, Mrs. Bonamici, others.
Their main thrust was voter suppression. They argued requiring specific proof of citizenship, like birth certificates or passports, would hit certain groups hard, people without easy access to those documents.
They questioned if non-citizen voting is even a widespread problem, right?
Exactly. They argued there's no evidence it affects outcomes and that this bill would just make it harder for eligible American citizens to vote. Ms. Sewell called it highly restrictive, a step backward.
And Ms. Friedman used the term modern-day poll tax.
Yeah, really strong language, framing it as an economic barrier targeting women and lower-income folks. Also flagging the lack of provision for mail or online registration proof.
So a really passionate debate. Then there was a motion to recommit.
Yeah.
By Mrs. Johnson of Texas.
Right. That's basically a last chance to send the bill back to committee, maybe change it.
And it was defeated?
Which usually means the majority is set on passing the bill as is, clears the path for the final vote.
So the bill moved forward. And alongside this big debate, lots of other bills got introduced.
Oh yeah, the legislative hopper is always full. Things like improving childcare, food programs, ethics rules for the executive branch, even winter canola research.
Winter canola research, yeah.
HR 2858.
Okay.
Plus resolutions on esophageal cancer awareness, honoring Hialeah, Florida's anniversary, supporting library staff, the whole spectrum.
It really shows the sheer breadth of what they're working on, even if one big debate takes center stage. Okay, let's shift over to the Senate side for April 10th. What was the main buzz there?
Tariffs seem to be a major theme. Senator Schumer led off with a pretty sharp critique of President Trump's tariff policies from the preceding days.
What was his angle?
He questioned the sort of economic reasoning, the understanding of trade, foreign relations. He pointed to negative impacts on markets, confidence, even retirement savings. And he noted the justifications seemed to keep shifting.
So casting doubt on the strategy and its effects.
Pretty much. But then Senator Barrasso came in with a completely different take.
How so?
He pivoted to border security, highlighted drops in illegal crossings under Trump compared to the previous administration, mentioned arrests of MS-13 leaders, framing it as a success on the security front, not focusing on the economic side of tariffs at all.
Interesting contrast. Did others weigh in on tariffs?
Yes, Senator Cantwell echoed some of Schumer's economic concerns, impacts on construction, medicine costs, general uncertainty. And she made a key point about Congress not voting on these tariffs.
Ah, the executive authority issue.
Exactly, which led Senator Sullivan to talk about the Grassley-Cantwell Act.
That sounds bipartisan. What does it do?
It aims to give Congress more say, requires congressional approval within 60 days for certain new tariffs imposed by the president. A push to reclaim some of that authority Congress has ceded over time.
That could be significant if it gains traction. Okay, what else was happening?
Senator Cardin delivered a very sobering address about the war in Sudan.
Oh, right, the humanitarian crisis there.
He focused particularly on the horrific impact on women and girls, sexual slavery, violence, and the denial of aid. A strong call for accountability for war crimes.
Using the Senate floor to spotlight a major international crisis.
Absolutely. Then Senator Thune gave a kind of summary of recent Senate business.
What did he highlight?
Passing resolutions to overturn Biden administration regulations using the Congressional Review Act and working on budget resolutions for things like tax relief, border security, energy, defense spending, sort of the Republican agenda items.
Got it. On a completely different note.
Senator Wyden spoke about organ donation, highlighted a new law, the Securing Organ Transplantation Act, and just encouraged people to consider becoming donors.
A public service announcement, essentially.
Yeah, a really important one, using the platform for that.
Was there any procedural drama in the Senate?
There was a bit of a snag regarding the nomination of General Kane for chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Well, several senators, including Sullivan and Wicker, spoke in favor, emphasizing his experience and the need for the president to have his top military advisor confirmed. They pushed for unanimous consent to confirm him quickly.
What?
But Senator Schatz objected.
Okay, so what does that mean, practically?
It means the nomination couldn't just sail through on unanimous agreement. One objection is enough to stop that fast-track process. It signals there's some issue or concern, at least from Senator Schatz, that needs addressing before a full vote, causes a delay.
Interesting. So even with support, one senator can pump the brakes.
That's the power of Senate procedure. But they did agree on quite a few commemorative resolutions.
They're kind.
Things like supporting World Malaria Day, marking the Oklahoma City bombing anniversary like the House mentioned, recognizing World Quantum Day.
World Quantum Day.
175. Also, Gold Star Wives Day, the 200th anniversary of Vicksburg, Mississippi, honoring George Foreman.
Late boxer.
The late George Foreman, yes. Also, National Sexual Assault Awareness Month, National Park Week, a lot of consensus items.
It shows they can agree on some things.
Yes. These recognitions and anniversaries often find broad support.
We also saw some interaction with the White House, a message from President Trump about an EPA rule exemption.
Right, dealing with emission standards for power plants.
And the Senate President, pro tem, announced signing a resolution that disapproved of a Department of Energy rule on coolers and freezers.
So Congress pushing back on executive branch regulations there, that check and balance in action.
And then, finally, a round of additional statements from various senators.
Yeah, kind of wrapping up individual points. Mrs. Hyde-Smith recognized April as Faith Month. Ms. Klobuchar explained why she now opposed an FTC nominee she'd previously voted for in committee.
Oh, why the change?
She cited concerns about his commitment to ongoing antitrust cases. An interesting reversal.
Others honored retiring public servants, reintroduced housing legislation.
Senator Padilla on the Housing for All Act, and Senator Warren spoke about National Public Health Week.
What were her points?
She raised concerns about potential cuts to Medicaid, restructuring health agencies, and shared some pretty stark statistics on suicide, mortality rates, smoking, pollution deaths, painting a concerning picture of public health challenges.
So, using that time to sound the alarm on health policy.
Definitely. And Senator Merkley spoke about the legacy of the Rebbe, and Senator Barrasso recognized a local child development center back in Wyoming. A real mix right to the end.
So looking back at April 10th, 2025, wow, it really is a whirlwind. From local high school teams to global crises, election law debates, tariff impacts, nominations.
It's all in there. The Congressional Record is dense, but it gives you such a detailed view of what your government is actually doing and discussing day to day. It's not just the big headlines.
And hopefully, unpacking this one day gives folks a better handle on it. It's not just dry text. It's debate, it's priorities being set, it's policy in motion.
And for anyone listening, this information is out there. The record is public. You can go online. You can search for topics you care about, see what's being said.
That's a great point. Staying informed is key, right? Understanding the arguments around something like the SEV Act or the tariff debate helps you form your own opinions.
Absolutely. And you can see the nuances, like that bipartisan effort, the Grassley-Cantwell Act on tariffs, trying to shift power back to Congress. That stuff might get lost otherwise.
And it all comes back to engagement. Knowing what's happening allows you to actually contact your representatives, right? Tell them what you think about these bills, these policies.
That's fundamental, whether it's election laws, economic policy, healthcare, whatever. Letting them know where you stand is how the system is supposed to work.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Congressional Record.